0.8% per annum on the amount of the loan withdrawn and outstanding. B, the commitment charge is payable at a rate of 1% per annum on the amount of the OCR portion on withdrawn. The loan is repayable in 48 equal or approximately equal and consecutive quarterly installments on each first day of January, the first day of April, and the first day of October of each year, commencing on the first due date immediately following the expiration of 5 years after the date of the loan agreement, or on a later due date that the Caribbean Development specifies in writing. The other motions to be debated here this afternoon: be it resolved that Parliament authorize the Minister of Finance to guarantee a loan in the amount of $4,100,000 from the International Development Association for the purpose of financing the Caribbean Regional Communications Infrastructure Program. Be it resolved that A, the maximum commitment charge rate payable on the unwithdrawn financing balance is 0.5% per annum. B, a service charge is payable on the withdrawn credit balance that is equal to the greater of 1, the sum of 3/4 of 1% per annum plus the basis adjustment to the service charge. 2, 3/4 of 1% per annum. And C, the loan is repayable in 20 years from the date of first disbursement of the loan. D, the principal repayable is 20 years from the date of first disbursement of loan. D, the principal amount of the loan is repayable on each 15th day of February and 15th day of August of each year at a rate of 1% commencing on the 15th day of August 2032 and including the 15th day of February 2040. To the 2% commencing on the 15th day of August 2042, including the 15th day of February 2060. Be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance, that's the third motion, for the Minister of Finance to guarantee a loan on the amount of $20 million from the International Development Association for the purpose of financing the Human Capital Resilience Project. Be it resolved that the maximum commitment charge rate payable on the unwithdrawn financing balance is 0.5% per annum. B, a service charge is payable on the withdrawn credit balance that is equal to the greater of the sum of 3/4 of 1% per annum plus the basis adjustment to the service charge. 2 3/4 of 1% per annum. C, the loan is repayable in 40 years from the date of the first disbursement of the loan, inclusive of a 10-year grace period. The principal amount of the loan is repayable on each 15th day of May and the 15th day of November of each year at the rate of 1% commencing on the 15th day of May 2040 and including the 15th day of November 2059. And the fourth motion, be it resolved that Parliament, by affirmative resolution, approves the draft value-added tax amendment of Schedule 3 order, which amends Schedule 3 of the Act to exempt imports of postal items, food, clothing, toys, and other household consumables contained in barrels. Bills by the Honorable Minister for Health and Wellness, Leader of Government Business, the Labour Amendment due for its first reading. We await the arrival of the President of the Senate, which is due any moment now. In the meantime, the members on both sides of the Senate, the opposite and the government senators, are awaiting the arrival of the President of the Senate. They are engaged in conversation as the House gets ready to commence the afternoon session. We'll take a short break, and as soon as the House is ready to resume, we'll be back here live with you. Thank you.
You notice shortness of breath and a stark pain in your chest. You might have lost your taste and smell, and you're breathing like you just walked up 3 flights of stairs. These symptoms signal a trip to the emergency department of your local hospital. How will you be treated? When would you be put on a ventilator? And how could you develop a severe case of COVID-19 despite being perfectly healthy? Before you rush in, call your doctor or hospital ahead of time and describe your symptoms. You'll want to do this because your local emergency clinic might not have enough beds and may need to direct you to another facility. Or your symptoms might not be considered severe enough yet to require treatment at the hospital, so it's best to check by phone first. But once you are admitted, nurses will give you a COVID-19 test. Most patients will also have a set of blood tests taken from their veins. Doctors will then listen to your lungs and check the levels of oxygen in your blood with a clip-on finger monitor. Why are they doing that? Because if you have severe COVID-19 symptoms, the oxygen levels in your blood can drop too low. Since this can result in life-threatening damage to your vital organs, you'll get oxygen to breathe through 2 small tubes that go just inside your nostrils or through a face mask. You'll then get a chest X-ray or a CT scan so that doctors can get a better understanding of which areas of your lungs are inflamed. A CT scan, also known as a computerized axial tomography, is a painless diagnostic test that uses X-rays and computers to create cross-sectional images of your body. A CT scanner is a large square or round X-ray machine with a tunnel through the center. It helps doctors see into your lungs. During your CT scan, you will lie on a table that slowly passes through the tunnel. A giant ring called a gantry will rotate around your body. It contains a tube that releases X-ray beams and detectors that will measure the amount of radiation absorbed by your body. And these beams will capture many views.
This just walked in with the Minister and the President of the Senate. I wait for this afternoon session to begin. This afternoon session, we'll see the debate on that Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance to guarantee a loan to the amount of US $4,100,000 from the International Development Association for the purpose of financing the Caribbean Regional Communication Infrastructure Program. This morning, the House debated the Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance to borrow an amount of not exceeding the equivalent of US $7,945,000 from the Caribbean Development Bank's ordinary capital resources to finance the Millennium Highway and West Coast Reconstruction Project, which has been passed. We now go over to the President of the Senate.
Madam President, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Whereas it is provided under Section 41(1) of the Finance Administration Act, Cap 1501, that a guarantee involving a financial liability is not binding on government unless the Minister of Finance grants the guarantee in accordance with an enactment or with the prior approval of Parliament by a resolution of Parliament. And whereas it is further provided under Section 42 of the Finance Administration Act, Cap 1501, that any obligation arising from a guarantee given in accordance with Section 41 is a debt charge, and all debt charges for which the government is liable shall be charged on and paid out of the consolidated fund. And whereas the Minister of Finance considers it necessary to guarantee a loan in the amount of $4,100,000 from the International Development Association for the purpose of financing the Caribbean Regional Communications Infrastructure Program. And whereas the maximum commitment charge rate payable on the unwithdrawn financing balance is 0.5% per annum. And whereas a service charge is payable on the withdrawn credit balance that is equal to the greater of A, the sum of 0.75% per annum, plus the basis adjustment to the service charge, B, 0.75% per annum, and whereas the loan is repayable in 20 years from the date of first disbursement of the loan, and whereas the principal amount of the loan is repayable on each 15th day of February and 15th day of August of each year at a rate of A, 1%, commencing on the 15th day of August 2030, 2, and including the 15th day of February 2040, B, 2%, commencing on the 15th day of August 2040, 2, and including the 15th day of February 2060, be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance to guarantee a loan in the amount of $4,100,000 from the International Development Association for the purpose of financing the Caribbean Regional Communications Infrastructure Program. Be it further resolved that A, the maximum commitment charge rate payable on the unwithdrawn financing balance is 0.5% per annum. B, a service charge is payable on the withdrawn credit balance that is equal to the greater of 1, the sum of 0.75% per annum, plus the basis adjustment to the service charge. 2, 0.75% per annum. C, the loan is repayable in 20 years from the date of first disbursement of the loan. D, the principal amount of the loan is repayable on each 15th day of February and 15th day of August of each year at a rate of 1%, commencing on the 15th day of August 2032 and including the 15th day of February 2040. II, 2%, commencing on the 15th day of August 2042 and including the 15th day of February 2060. Madam President, on behalf of many sectors of our society, including the youth, government, the tourism sector, communication sector, I fully support this resolution. The objective of this program, Madam President, is to increase access to regional broadband networks and to advance the development of an ICT-enabled services industry in St. Lucia and in the Caribbean region. The program consists of regional connectivity infrastructure, ICT-led innovation and implementation support. The regional connectivity infrastructure part of the program requires carrying out of a program of activities for technical assistance and capacity building of institutions for the design and implementation of the public-private partnership arrangements, including transactional advice and validation of design and costs for broadband infrastructure. And it also calls for strengthening the legal and regulatory environment to harmonize the same at the regional level and to provide effective regulation for the benefit of end users, including infrastructure sharing and open and non-discriminatory access to the IXP and network infrastructure. Madam President, this program represents a very technical program to support our IT infrastructure across the board, and there is also a regional component. The ICT-led innovation part of the program will carry out activities for skills development and certification for eligible public and private training institutions and private entities through the provision of training grants, and the capacity building and business incubation to support development of local ICT, small and medium enterprises to promote the creation of new ICT enabling industry through the provision of business incubation grants to eligible local ICT small and medium enterprises. Implementation support involves the strengthening of the institutional capacity for implementation, management, coordination, monitoring and evaluation of the program, and building the capacity for relevant key policy and regulatory institutions through the provision of technical advisory services, acquisition of goods, and financing of operating costs. Therefore, Madam President, I am submitting this proposal, which will go a long way into developing the ICT sector in St. Lucia and creating greater capacity for our telecommunication system. I submit this resolution, Madam President, for support of my fellow senators. Thank you.
Senators, the question is that Parliament authorize the Minister of Finance to guarantee a loan in the amount of US $4,100,000 from the International Development Association for the purpose of financing the Caribbean Regional Communications Infrastructure Program. Be it further resolved that A, the maximum commitment charge rate payable on the unwithdrawn financing balance is 0.5% per annum. B, a service charge is payable on the withdrawn credit balance that is equal to the greater of 1, the sum of 0.75% per annum, plus the basis adjustment to the service charge. 2, 0.75% per annum. C, the loan is repayable in 20 years from the date of first disbursement of the loan. D, the principal amount of the loan is repayable on each 15th day of February and 15th day of August of each year at a rate of 1% commencing the 15th day of August 2030, 2 and including the 15th day of February 2040. 2% commencing on the 15th day of August 2040 and 2 and including the 15th day of February 2060. Honorable Leader of Government Business, could you turn off your mic, please? Leader of Opposition Business.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, just briefly to this piece of this motion to borrow the 4 million, I think it is for CASIP, this regional infrastructure for ITC, and it's a contribution towards creating an environment that would lend support to, I would take it, almost a new environment for business, connecting with the established service providers of broadband and understanding where we are at this time in this world. The need for ICT at its cutting edge is even more important. And those of us at this time who are experiencing almost, Madam President, a new world, in terms of what's happening. I've seen families have to do church, virtual meetings, you know. That is very, very important that an initiative like that would go a long way in helping shape our environment for the kind of business and opportunities that we need to attract. Of course, this is really certainly paving a world for our young people in terms of, because, Madam President, they are the ones that could really grasp the opportunities that would be presented. And that is why, Madam President, I would lend support. But also, in addition to this, look towards other mechanisms that can really make this area a realization, because there are other components of support for young people. Madam President, just to use as an example, I met a young man, must have been around 13, and I said to him what he was doing, and he said he's unemployed, he's not at school. Then he quickly took his phone and he said to me, but I'm doing some work there. I'm into some marketing. And then he showed me what he was advertising for some company overseas. And I said to him, well, how you get to do that? And he said, YouTube, man, YouTube, you know. And Madam President, there is a population that if we invest in our young people, Madam President, they will take us to the place where we need to go. I believe some of the things that we are trying to do now, some of it we should leave it for young people, but invest in them, and they will usher us, take us across the threshold for the development of our country. And therefore I applaud and support an initiative that would create the sort of infrastructure for ICT and the other support system that could really strengthen our capacity to respond in this new environment that this world seeks to achieve. I wish to thank you.
Senator Ogier.
Thank you, Madam President. A quick question through you, Madam President, to Leader of Government Business. Madam President, the matter is captioned, Resolution of Parliament to authorize the Minister of Finance to guarantee borrowing. So I have two questions. Who is the primary borrower in this case? It is not stated anywhere in the documentation before us. And is there a financial intermediary through whom the funds are to be challenged? I think both of those are highly relevant questions, because it would appear that government is not the official borrower or the primary borrower, but merely the guarantor, in which case there must be a third party somewhere in the mix, which has, as far as I can see, not been named in the paperwork before us. Thank you.
Honorable Leader of Government, sorry.
Madam President.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you. Madam President, I did not quite get Senator Ogier's query.
Senator Ogier.
Yes, Madam President, thank you. Madam President, the documentation clearly says that we are being asked to approve a guarantee. We are not asked to approve a borrowing, but a guarantee. So therefore, if it is a guarantee, that there must be a borrower of the first resort on behalf of whom we are guaranteeing, because the government is not borrowing the money itself or in its own name according to the paperwork before us. So there must be an intermediary for whom we are guaranteeing the loan. There must be an intermediary borrower if the language is to be credible. So the guarantee would be for a third party. So there's the lender, there's the borrower, and there's the guarantor. And in this case, we are being asked to approve the role of the government as the guarantor, not the borrower. So I would like to ask, who is the borrower? And secondly, if there is a financial intermediary, Caribbean Development Bank or some other agency, or ECTEL in the case of telecommunications, through whom the funds are going to be channeled, it might be that as this is a regional project, that there's a regional agency to be named somewhere in the documentation, but that name does not appear in the paperwork before us. Thank you.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, this is a multi-country program, and all the governments will be supporting, but there is a gap, and this is what they are really asking. This is what they really want the guarantee for. It's not that they themselves, well, it's a guarantee for the additional financing, but all the different countries will be financing a portion of the program. Not just OECS. The program really is providing, it really is involved CASIP and the Caribbean Telecommunications Union.
Senator Oje.
Yes, Madam President, if we could just have that repeated, please, because CASIP is one I heard, and so, Madam President, if I may remain standing, then to me that is vital information to be included in the documentation before us, Madam President, because we as the government of St. Lucia, we as the Parliament are being asked to approve a guarantee. That guarantee will appear as a liability on the finances of the government of St. Lucia, so it must appear in somebody's name. And I would say that it is vital that that entity be known and disclosed in the paperwork before us. We cannot guarantee a loan to or on behalf of an entity which is not named in the paperwork. Thank you.
Madam President, I believe, sorry.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, there is a complete breakdown of the program and who will be providing what, but there are different components. Therefore, I believe it would be more appropriate, Madam President, if I make, because I would have to read the entire document so that he would understand, because there are different pieces. So I do not know if it would be better if I just make this a document of the House, because an entire breakdown of the projects is right here, Madam President.
Senator Oje.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I feel strongly that it needs to be in an integral part of the paperwork before us. It has to be an integral part of the resolution. I'm not sure how such an omission would occur, but and may I point out, Madam President, that we have a similar situation in another matter coming before us very shortly, that the actual borrower of record has not been mentioned in the paperwork before us, and a guarantee to be affirmed by Parliament, I would imagine, should have the borrower of record clearly stated.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I'll just read part of my notes here that I omitted, and to see if that will clarify anything. The debt charge and all debt charges for which the government is liable is charged on and paid out of the consolidated fund. So therefore, it's going to be, the government of St. Lucia will be responsible for paying this back, but a portion of it has to be guaranteed because it is a regional arrangement. It is really for the Caribbean Regional Communications Infrastructure Program. So CACIP is really the organization that is going to be getting all the assistance, the financing, for them to carry out this regional ICT program. I'm not a techie person, so I cannot really go into all the technical details, but it is a regional program, and all the different countries are contributing, and there is a portion that has to be guaranteed from the governments of the different countries. Okay?
Senator Ogier.
Yes. So, Madam President, I really don't want to belabor the point. The two issues for me is, or for us, is whether or not this is a loan or a guarantee. If it is a loan, then most of the language would work because it's a loan by the government of St. Lucia from the borrower. If it is a guarantee, then I think that the borrower of record has to appear in the paperwork. I think it's very, very, very important. We are in the presence of minds greater than mine on this matter. We have bankers and legal luminaries in our midst. Perhaps they can shed some light, but I believe that for the paperwork to be complete and proper, either it is a borrowing by the government of St. Lucia, which is a different kind of liability on the accounts of the government, or it is a guarantee, which is a contingent liability on the accounts of the government. But we ought to be clear. And I think it ought to be in the matter before us, but I could be wrong.
Madam President hasn't called me. She hasn't called me.
Senator Thomas Francis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, just to support Senator Ogier's argument, when we speak of a guarantee, it is suggested that there is a third party because a guarantee is contingent. So it therefore means that in presentation of this bill, we must be made aware as to who the principal debtor is that government is guaranteeing. Because it suggests, the bill suggests that government is not the principal debtor, that there is a principal debtor and government is guaranteeing that principal debtor. But the use of the funds will be employed by government. That's my understanding. So there is a critical piece of information missing. For example, Madam President, when the government came here to guarantee a loan for SLASPO, for the redevelopment of the airport, the government clearly stated that they are here to seek approval through a guarantee for SLASPO to borrow funds to redevelop the airport. So we knew for a fact that government provided the guarantee and the principal debtor was SLASPO. In this situation, we are not being told who the principal debtor is, and that's the question. Thank you, Madam.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, what I can provide here is to say that it is a guarantee that is being requested for CTU, the Caribbean Telecommunications Union. It is a regional project, and it's really called CACIP, and different countries in the region will be participating. But the funds are really for the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, and it will be, it is a guarantee. However, you know, the government is still responsible for that guarantee. But it is a guarantee in the first instance.
Honorable Leader of Government Business, do you wish to ask a question of anyone else in terms of getting further information? Thank you. Senator Ogier.
Thank you, Madam President, through you to say, yes, we welcome the information that it is for the Caribbean Telecommunications Union. So the remaining question is, Madam President, whether that needs to be reflected in the paperwork before us, suitably, accurately, and for the record, and to truly create a contingent liability on the accounts of the government of St. Lucia for which it remains truly accountable. It seems to me that that is critical to the document. And may I point out again, we have the same problem with the next piece coming up, which also is cited as a guarantee without any disclosure of the borrower of record. That is largely, I think, at this point, a legal question as to whether the documentation should not clearly name the borrower of record. Thank you.
Leader of Government Business. Your rebuttal is, have you finished your rebuttal? Senators, the question is that Parliament authorize the Minister of Finance to guarantee a loan in the amount of 4. Leader of Government Business, have you completed your rebuttal? Can you indicate so for the record, please?
Madam President, I responded to say that the in support of the Communications Union, and it is going towards CACIP, the Caribbean Regional Communications Infrastructure Program. And this is the information that I have. Senator Ogier also spoke about the next bill coming up. I think we can wait until that bill comes up, and then we can deal with that bill, that resolution, the following resolution. But for this one, it is a guarantee for CTU, which is Caribbean Telecommunications Union, and it is the CACIP program.
Senator Ogier.
Yeah. Madam President, it could be that if Leader of Government Business has finished her rebuttal, that there is no further debate. Could you correct me if I'm wrong, please? However, Madam President, I would like to suggest that this matter be deferred and the paperwork corrected. I do not think we can approve a guarantee without the borrower of record being in the paperwork. And I believe, Madam President, if there is no opinion on that, that we should not proceed, that we should ensure that the paperwork is correct. This is a contingent liability on the government of St. Lucia. We should have all our T's crossed and our I's dotted. I would not recommend that we proceed with this unless the paperwork truly reflects all of the pertinent information. Thank you.
Madam Clerk. Senator Ogier.
Madam President,
The correct way to do it is to make a motion. And that's what I've been waiting for. But you're only suggesting, but that's not the correct way to enter it into the record. So if that's what you wish to do, please do so, and I'll put the question.
thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I would like to move that this matter and any other matter so constrained by lack of information be deferred for consideration at the next earliest sitting of the House. Thank you.
Senator Ogier, could you be precise about what you want in your motion?
Thank you, Madam President, for your...
It has to be repeated by me, for one.
Yes, Madam President.
And it has to be clear. It cannot be a general statement about what you find is lacking.
I am indebted for your erudite guidance, Madam President. Madam President, I would like to move that insofar as the paperwork before us does not declare who the primary borrower is, but asks the government of St. Lucia, asks the Parliament to guarantee a loan by some unstated third party, I wish to move that the stated third party be included and properly reflected in the document before us. And if that is not feasible at today's sitting, Madam President, I would like to further move that the matter be deferred for consideration at the earliest possible moment. Would that
In moving a
suffice?
motion, you have to make one request at a time. It's not two. So
I
please
further
make your
move-
request. And
so-
what I have is here is stated, it's not the borrower is not stated. So you'd like the stated third party to be reflected and included in the document before the House, before the Senate.
That is correct, Madam President. And I further move that if that cannot be achieved in this sitting, that the matter be deferred until such time as it can be reflected adequately in the paperwork. Would that be appropriate, Madam President?
Senators, the question is that the borrower be stated or the third party be reflected and included in the document before the House, and should that not be possible, that it be deferred to the next sitting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion, say no. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion, say no. No. Division, Madam Clerk.
Senator Dr. Adrian Ogier, how do you vote?
Sir, I vote A.
Senator Fortuna Belrose, how do you vote? Senator Gibeon Ferdinand, how do you vote?
Aye.
Senator Vermingil Francis, how do you vote? No. Senator Jerome Gideon, how do you vote? Senator Joachim Henry, how do you vote? Senator Mary Isaac, how do you vote? Senator Francisco Japia, how do you vote? Senator Timothy Mangal, how do you vote? Senator Mauricio Thomas Francis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Results 5-5, so I move on to the casting votes by the Honorable President of the Senate. Honorable President of the Senate, how do you vote?
No. On a division, there are 5 ayes and 6 noes. The noes have it. I now put the question. Senators, the question is that Parliament authorize the Minister of Finance to guarantee a loan in the amount of $4,100,000 US from the International Development Association for the purpose of financing the Caribbean Regional Communications Infrastructure Program. Be it further resolved that the maximum commitment charge rate payable on the unwithdrawn financing balance is 1/2% per annum. A service charge is payable on the withdrawn credit balance that is equal to the greater of the sum of 3/4% per annum plus the basis adjustment to the service charge, 3/4% per annum. The loan is repayable in 20 years from the date of first disbursement of the loan. The principal amount of the loan is repayable on each 15th day of February and 15th day of August of each year at a rate of 1% commencing on the 15th day of August 2030 and including the 15th day of February 2040. 2% commencing on the 15th day of August 2042 and including the 15th day of February 2060. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. No. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Division, Madam President, division.
It's already called. I've already put the question. I put the question and it was answered. You have to call for the division before. Did we not? Division.
Senator Dr. Adrian Oshie, how do you vote? Senator Fortuna Belrose, how do you vote? Senator Gideon Ferdinand, how do you vote?
No.
Senator Hermingen Francis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Senator Jerome Gideon, how do you vote?
No.
Senator Joachim Henry, how do you vote?
No.
Senator Mary Isaac, how do you vote? Senator Francisco Jean-Pierre, how do you vote? Senator Timothy Mangal, how do you vote?
Yes.
Monsieur Thomas Francis.
Madam.
We have a tie for 5-5. So Honorable Janine Girodi McIntyre, how do you vote?
On the division, there are 6 ayes and 5 noes. The ayes have it.
She hasn't called me.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Whereas it is provided under Section 41 of the Finance Administration Act, Cap 1501, that a guarantee involving a financial liability is not binding on government unless the Minister for Finance grants the guarantee in accordance with an enactment or with the prior approval of Parliament by a resolution of Parliament. And whereas it is further provided under Section 42 of the Finance Administration Act, Cap 1501, that any obligation arising from a guarantee given in accordance with Section 41 is a debt charged, and all debt charges for which the government is liable shall be charged on and paid out of the consolidated fund. And whereas the Minister for Finance considers it necessary to guarantee a loan in the amount of $20 million from the International Development Association for the purpose of financing the Human Capital Resilience Project, and whereas the maximum commitment charge rate payable on the unwithdrawn financing balance is 0.5% per annum, and whereas a service charge is payable on the withdrawn credit balance that is equal to the greater of A, the sum of 0.75% per annum plus the basis adjustment to the service charge, B, 0.75% per annum, and whereas the loan is repayable in 40 years from the date of first disbursement of the loan, inclusive of a 10-year grace period, and whereas the principal amount of the loan is repayable on each 15th day of May and 15th day of November of each year at a rate of A, 1% commencing on the 15th day of May 2032 and including the 15th day of November 2039. B, 2% commencing on the 15th day of May 2042 and including the 15th day of November 2059. Be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to guarantee a loan in the amount of $20 million from the International Development Association for the purpose of financing the Human Capital Resilience Project. Be it further resolved that A, The maximum commitment charge rate payable on the unwithdrawn financing balance is 0.5% per annum. B, a service charge is payable on the withdrawn credit balance that is equal to the greater of I, the sum of 0.75% per annum, plus the basis adjustment to the service charge, II, 0.75% per annum. C, the loan is repayable in 40 years from the date of first disbursement of the loan, inclusive of a 10-year grace period. D, the principal amount of the loan is repayable on each 15th day of May and 15th day of November of each year at a rate of I, 1% commencing on the 15th day of May 2032 and including the 15th day of November 2039. II, 2% commencing on the 15th day of May 2040, 2 and including the 15th day of November 2059. Madam President, this resolution before the Senate seeks approval to borrow 50 million from the International Development Association for the Human Capital Resilience Project. The objectives of the project are to improve the labor market relevance of skills in selected sectors by training teachers, improving skills, and increasing productivity. Okay. Also, Madam President, the project aims to increase efficiency and coverage of social protection, including improving social safety net programs, legislation, surveys, census on vulnerable people in society. Madam President, our list of vulnerable persons is not well coordinated, as it is left to the whims and fancies of politicians, as you know, among other inefficiencies. And when I say politicians, Madam President, I mean all of these politicians that seek to influence our social safety net programs. Madam President, no longer will we be subsidizing flour, sugar, and rice for all and sundry. As you know, we have a government supply warehouse that subsidizes those food items, and we subsidize it for everybody, including people who come from off our shores. They come here just to buy flour, sugar, and rice because it is much cheaper in St. Lucia from the government supply warehouse than in their own country. Madam President, also our healthcare assistance program will be better distributed if we are able to, through this program, come up with a list of our vulnerable persons who really are and truly are deserving of the care that we supply. It will provide us with a level of transparency that is desperately needed, Madam President, in our society. The social assistance will go to households that are truly in need, Madam President. The project consists of the following parts. Part 1, and I spoke to that, strengthening technical and vocational education and training. That is what we call the TVET program that is under the Ministry of Education. Part 2 of the program, strengthening the social protection system. That is where we are looking at our programs under the Ministry of Equity and Social Services. So that's where we have the, what we call, some people call it La Charité or Les Pauvres program. We also have assistance for vulnerable persons, special needs persons, and so on, Madam President. Part 3 of the program will cover technical assistance, capacity building, equipment and furniture for the TVET program, and project management. The project intervention in TVET will directly benefit TVET instructors and students at 2 post-secondary educational institutions, 3 training institutions, 22 secondary schools, and 5 special needs schools. At least 230 instructors and 3,000 students are expected to benefit. The loan is repayable in 40 years, inclusive of a grace period of 10 years, Madam President. So you can well imagine we have a moratorium on this loan for a period of 10 years. The terms and conditions of the loan are clearly stated in the resolution, Madam President. Therefore, I fully support this resolution. It is financed for the government of St. Lucia to execute social programs and, of course, training programs under TVET. Madam President, I submit this bill, this resolution to this honorable House, to my fellow senators, Madam President.
Senator Auger.
Yes, Madam President. Following the suggestion of the leader of government business that the error in this document be pointed out at the time of its consideration, I wish to point out a borrowing by a third party, the third party must be mentioned in the documentation. If it is a loan being taken directly by the government of St. Lucia, then that should be clear from the documentation before us. That is not the case, and once again, I would like to implore the House to make the necessary corrections to the documentation before it is passed in this House in this session. What we are doing here is not correct. It is contrary to the provisions of the Constitution and the entering into of debt by the Parliament of St. Lucia, and it is also contrary to the financial rules and regulations which have been set out to govern the business of this state. I cannot believe that we will willfully and knowingly frustrate those when we know better and we have the matter drawn to our attention, and we refuse to correct a simple matter which can either be done today or at some later date as befits our intelligence. Madam President, if this is a guarantee, the borrower of record should be in the paperwork before us. If it is a direct borrowing by the government of St. Lucia, then I am at pains once again to point out that the paperwork should say that. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Senator Thomas Francis.
Thank you very much for your indulgence, Madam President. Madam President, I rise here to echo the sentiments of Senator Auger. Madam President, this is Parliament. We are governed by the Constitution. We are governed by the standing orders. And it behooves us to do the right thing in this honorable House, Madam President. Madam President, it is mind-boggling that we would sit here this afternoon, listen to concerns relative to a bill that is badly drafted or that provides inadequate information for us to vote properly, and that we will just accept that it is okay and just pass the bill in the House. Madam, it is very painful. I do not know why we as an august body would sit and do that. But Madam President, I do not support that we should do this a second time. This issue with this particular bill mirrors the previous one for which we have just passed it, and it is inaccurate. Madam President, I would like to propose that we defer this bill until we get it right. Madam President, if I may also state, historically we've had issues with the drafting of some bills and some concerns that we have openly articulated in this House. And we have had reason to vote against certain motions and bills in this House. Not that we wanted to, but we were in a position where we did not get adequate information to satisfy questions and concerns that we expressed in this House. We did propose, Madam President, that it is fitting for the Attorney General or somebody from his office to sit in our midst, so when we have issues of that nature, he can provide guidance. And thankfully, Madam President, he has been sitting here with us all day, both himself and his colleague, and it is mind-boggling again why we would not engage him to get this thing right, or take an adjournment for us to go and get it right and come back and vote or fix the problem. Madam President, I cannot support voting on this bill because, like we said before, it is incorrectly drafted. Thank you, Madam.
Senator Henry.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, whereas we support certain aspects in terms of the ethos of what is before us, the actual language, which is highly technical and it is legal, as raised by the independent senators, we do support the point being made. This is a point that has been made over and over in the lower house when there seem to be errors. Some of us are not legally minded to observe it, but when it is observed, I think it's only fair that we consider these things. The subject matter or the ethos of what the bill is trying to do is one thing. As the first one that was passed with the errors, the ethos of it is good, but the actual technicality of getting it correct, the drafting being correct, is, if it's a concern, I think we should consider, because in the Parliament we are all equals in terms of senators, and I think we should not ignore what is being said. Thank you very much.
Senator Ferdinand.
Thank you, Madam President. I came here prepared to be part of the debate, and I believe that, like the previous motion that was passed, there are clearly issues that have been raised by at least 3 other colleagues that I believe are genuine and are well-founded. And I think in the Senate, in the Parliament, we want to do things right. I think we have to approach that in the proper spirit, and if there is clearly an issue that has to be resolved, or issues, the honorable thing to do for honorable men and women like us is to do it right. And so, Madam President, I would like to support the sentiments expressed by Leader of Opposition Business as well as my other 2 independent colleagues, and call for us to do the right thing and not allow that error or that decision to be made wrongly. Thank you, Madam President.
Honorable Minister responsible for Culture and Creative Industries.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I rise to support this resolution. And you would have noted, and I think it's important for us to all note, that today we are here with a suite of initiatives with respect to bringing our country on a course of recovery and prosperity. And we have done some great work, in building the confidence of our people, and we must maintain momentum, Madam President. And so, Madam President, as a nation, we have had a successful battle with the COVID virus, at least a preliminary battle with the COVID virus. And we are aware that there are many challenges still to come, both human and systemic. And these must be overcome. And for us to be able to do that, we must maintain the confidence, of our people. We are a compassionate government. We are an ambitious government. And for us to be able to consistently deliver, we have to ensure that we involve our entire nation in the process. Madam President, our greatest resource is our people. And this project this afternoon, the proposal this afternoon before us, is one that will be focused on improving the capacity of our people, and also one that will be focused on ensuring that the safety nets for our most vulnerable people are effective. And so, Madam President, my government has always been focused on the long-term development, of our country. We're not a government about bounce and draw. We are a government that sets systems and leave legacy behind insofar as how we operate our business as a nation. That's why, Madam President, we are excited about this project. This project, which is designed with two major critical components, like I said earlier, improving the skill sets and improving our social protection system, is very important, Madam President, because we believe, sorry, I'm still here. Because we believe, Madam President, within the 5-year mandate that we have a responsibility for setting the tone for the future. And as leaders, that's what we are called to do, set the right tone. And so we take some of the concerns that have been mentioned here this afternoon, but the important thing for us is to ensure that we set systems up so that when we leave those privileged positions, we are not craving, for things to be better, and where we could have done better as a people. Madam President, I listened to the debate in the lower house, and I was appalled at some of the simple issues that seem to be a major hurdle for some of our parliamentarians. And I think it was one of the leaders, I think it may have been the Castries East representative to be exact. And I could not understand, Madam President, for someone who's been elected by the people to continue to experience such breakdown in communication with one of our local councils. And he's not in a position to assist the people of his constituency with a simple facility. My government has been deliberate in ensuring that every parliamentary representative has the opportunity.
Senator?
Yes, Madam President.
I'm going to draw to your attention.
Yes.
Order 37-8.
Yes.
The conduct of members of the House of Assembly should not be referenced in the Senate.
Yes, I take that point, Madam. I think I was coming to the point where this Human Development Resilience Project is critical for us insofar as people at the community level and in our institutions understand the value of working together, you understand, and taking responsibility for issues and projects that they are responsible for within the various communities. And if people are involved in the process, or if they are engaged in the process, then it's much easier for us to develop those initiatives in the right way. And that is why this project is so important, because it will provide the avenues for our people, our citizens, to become equipped with the skills to be able to operate at the community very effectively and work harmoniously with the persons who have been elected to represent them. So, Madam President, my question will always be to those opposite and those who come in to lead beyond our stint. What did you do when you were there to ensure that as a representative, you understand, you got the resources you wanted, you understand, to facilitate you? You must leave that legacy behind so that one coming after you can benefit, from it. And not when you're sitting in that position, you do not provide that opportunity for others. So, opportunity for others, you must be able, you must be willing, you understand, you must be prepared, and I'm rushing here, but you must be prepared to face your own music. We are the ones setting the foundation for the future. And so it's always going to be What did you do when you were there to ensure that you got the resources, you understand, to facilitate you? That is the question that we must ask as leaders. And this project, the Human Development Resiliency Project, is designed to equip our people with the skills so they understand what community development is all about, how to manage themselves through the various processes and work collectively in the interest of their communities. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really happy that this project is happening, because it will equip all of us, you know, with skills with respect to our own self-awareness, discovering ourselves, being able to exercise our freedoms, of course, being able to understand that we can let go when we are involved in organizations, being prepared to give, of course, being perceptive and staying relevant for all times. So we're quite happy with this project, Madam President. And as the Minister for Culture and Creative Industries, I'm really happy that the government is making that type of investment in the people of this country to ensure that our country continues to flourish and be on the momentum, on the rule that we are. Thank you very much, Madam President. But we had to tell them what it was.
Senators, I'm here to tell you or to advise how things should be done procedurally, and I've already done that. It is not by standing and suggesting. I've already said you move a motion. So you may, one after the other, lament, but nobody's doing it procedurally. So I'm resting this there. Senator Ogier.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I would like to move a motion that in the matter before us, the paperwork be amended to properly reflect who is the borrower and who is the guarantor. And insofar as the documentation before us does not point that out, I recommend that the matter be deferred or corrected. I am not sure what else I can say to encourage my fellow senators to take a more responsible approach to the business of the state. And I see no reason why this matter needs to be a division. We are merely trying to do the best possible thing for the country. And if something is improperly drafted, it seems to me a simple matter to correct it. I do not rise to object to the matter at hand. Let me state that for the record. I have no problem with either of the measures that are being proposed. I do have a problem with the fact that this is not properly drafted, and it behooves the members of government here present to set an example, do the correct thing. I cannot see what is the point of having a Senate which sits over the lower house in order to ensure that things are done in a proper and upright manner, and then for us to pass things simply because we have the votes. I've tried to make that statement before. There were moments when I thought that we would be so moved as to do the correct thing. I wish to appeal once again that the matter be deferred, and I move a motion, Madam, in case I am ambiguous, Madam President, I move a motion that the matter be deferred or corrected.
Amendments to motions must be seconded. You see, the procedure is here. You must refer to the point of order. You must refer to the order and do it correctly. It also states how that whatever you're putting in, you need to put in whatever you're proposing you want to leave out. None of that's being said.
Madam President, I rise to second the motion before us.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I am hearing the calls on the floor. I know that we have sat on resolutions like this before, where government is borrowing for a certain government project, and the language has not been any different. But Madam President, I stand corrected. I would like to call for a recess at this time so that I can consult and come back to this honorable House with a decision.
Senators, the question is that this sitting be suspended for until what time, Leader of Government Business? For how long?
About 20 minutes, Madam President.
Until 5:45? Yes? I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Senate suspended.
Hello, everyone. Well, there appeared to be a short recess where the independent Senator Adrian Ogier has stood on a motion to question the document stating that there is an error that would and ask that it be deferred or the error corrected. He is questioning to find out who's the borrower and the guarantor of a particular resolution, and so a vote was taken in favor of the members, the government senators. But the argument went on, and the decision has been taken that there be a short recess to have this document amended and that it be properly drafted. And so we hope that we will be back in a short moment, in a brief moment from now, to resume the session of the Senate. And so we ask you to join us perhaps in a few minutes from now, hopefully, where this document will be properly drafted and for the Senate to recommence the session here in this House. And so we will take a short break, and we will be back here for the continuation of the session of the Upper House.